Creative Katie, Karen Burchill, welcome to my channel, Mixed Media Creations. Thank you to those of you that have subscribed, and if you haven't, click the button, the lower right-hand corner, and become a subscriber. Today we have a mixed media tutorial. It's a 5x7 canvas, and it's entitled, I Make Poor Decisions. So I'm starting with this canvas board. And I'm just stamping with archival black ink using this Coastal Escape stamp. This is one of my favorite stamps. It is so usable and versatile. And I just thought I just want some interesting background on this canvas board. Now, while I'm doing this on a canvas board, you can totally do this on an art journal page. This is a Crafter's Workshop stencil, and I believe it's called Switchback, but I will double check and I will put the link to it and any other products in the description box below. And thank you so much for those of you who do shop through my links. So I'm using some deep purple, deep violet here, and some orange. And that seems like an extremely odd color combination, but it works together to make this burgundy, autumny, wine-like color that I am absolutely in love with. So as I'm using the Switchback stencil, I'm not exactly getting the effect that I want. But it'll all add some interest and some layers. So I'm okay with that. So I'm just putting more paint through the stencil, and I'm not even lining up the stencil in places. So I'm going around now that I've got some paint on the sponge and making sure that I've got color wrapping around the canvas. Now, I'm not sure if this canvas board has a magnetic. Yeah, it has a magnet on the back, so it's a full magnet. But if you can't get this one, you can buy magnetic sheets and attach it to a canvas, or the canvas can be popped into a regular 5x7 frame without the glass. So you have lots of options for what you want to do with it. So I'm not overly happy with that, so I'm just adding color on top. And, you know, truth be known, sometimes the mistakes that we make or the things that happen that we don't really work the way we want them are actually what ends up creating some of the wonderful visual texture that we develop on our backgrounds. And you can still see, the Coastal Escape stamp, you can see the Switchback stenciling because where it was white, it's not completely covered. So every little bit does add to the final product. I think the biggest thing when I was a beginner is that I just didn't know that you needed to continue. Just keep going on, and you know, every page and every canvas seems to go through that ugly stage. So now I'm just taking some paint off through the stencil. So I've stenciled on it, and taken paint away. This is another way, and when you're doing this, you're getting the reverse of the stencil. And that's an interesting technique. So I just love the complexity of the layers that have been created here. Now this background, while I'm going, you know, for a wine theme, kind of a hostess gift wine theme, you could put anything on there. I think using these colors really work well for autumn or even a sunset. Put a silhouette on it. So I'm giving this a quick dry, before I move on to the next step. Now, one of the things on a background that sometimes you want is some contrast. So that's what I'm trying to build in here. And I think I'm using this tiny dot stencil, also from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'm putting copper through the stencil. I want to add some bling, subtle bling, onto this background. Now the color's not going to pop out in your face, but the shine and the shimmer is going to be there, and I just kind of want that to be there. Now, what I was saying about contrast, in a minute I'm going to grab my black because I'm thinking I want a little bit more contrast, depth maybe, just another layer. And one of the things that I typically do, I'm using this stencil with 2 colors, I've used the other stencil a couple different ways, is I don't tend to use a lot of stencils on one project. I tend to use the same stencil with different colors or in different ways. So as soon as I add this little bit of black here, I am now just completely in love with this background. It just makes this seem so much richer. And I'm just going to continue till I like what I see. And that's hard, to tell people about, or, to, get that feel. But the only way you're going to do that when you're a beginner is you have to put paint to paper. You have to experiment and you have to play. Watching the videos are great, but then go and play and have fun, and that is how you're going to learn. Not every page is going to turn out. Not every page turns out for me. Some are complete fails, and I make videos and I put them up there as well. You just got to do the time. As one of my favorite sayings is, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. And everything I learned about mixed media, about art journaling, I learned by making mistakes. So now I want to edge or frame my canvas board. Now, if this is hanging on a locker or a fridge, I want it to kind of stand out. If I decide, or the person who gets this decides to pop this into a frame, you won't see that, but that's okay. These 5x7 canvases also look really pretty and cute on these tiny mini easels that you can get at Michael's or the dollar store or online. I will put a link to canvas boards that you can buy online, as well as the magnetic sheets that you can peel and stick to turn any of your projects into a magnet and therefore usable art. So happy with what I have. I dug out my wine glass template, and I'm not sure how it's going to play, if this one's going to play before, but I did a Build Your Stash session where I show how I source out and create some of these tracers or templates that you see me using in a lot of my art. So I just thought that the saying needed a little bit of a border to separate it from this very, very busy background. So I'm just gluing it onto one of my colored papers, colored coffee filters, that is just more that pink color. I'm not really adding a new color here, but I do want a little difference in separation from the busy background. So I'm tracing around this wine glass with my Inktense pencil, and I'm using the Inktense pencil because it is permanent once it's activated. And you know, when I add varnish or when I add a wet medium, I don't want to have to deal with non-permanent stuff. I love watercolors and some of the mediums in other things, but when you're doing mixed media, I just like to not worry about it. So I'm activating the Inktense with just water and just kind of shading around, you know, kind of, this is a negative painting. I'm using kind of the float technique in here to make this glass pop out of the background and look kind of sort of 3D. Now I could have left it like this, but spoiler alert, for whatever reason, because I'm really liking it right now, I just wasn't happy with it. And I'm just using water from a spray bottle there. That's all that I have. And I'm just kind of using a round brush now, and I'm just kind of activating it and working it out so it kind of gives the shadow effect, and this is what makes it look 3D. So I'm gluing the sentiment down. And, you know, one of my tricks is don't try to make it straight and then nobody's going to know. So I try to tilt it a little bit, and I think that just makes it fun. I went for a bit bigger font here. This, I believe, is LW Simple font, and I think that is one that I purchased from Silhouette. But you can find free fonts on dafont.com. And I'll put a link to the video where I talk about how to download the fonts, how to install them into your Word program, and then how to make your own sentiments. These sentiments are printed out with my laser printer. When my laser printer died, I tried it with an inkjet and it did smudge. And nothing I could do was going to fix that. So, you know, I did end up buying another laser printer because I do a lot with it. And then I decide I'm just going to line this, and I was going to go gold and just changed my mind. I just went black around the sentiment, and I'm just lining it, and I'm kind of doing it sketchy. I'm not trying to make a perfect line because I can't. So I kind of do it sketchy, and then it has a nice effect. You can use a micron pen or other pen if that's what you feel more comfortable with, but I absolutely love the fine liner bottles. I've ruined many of the micron pens, but I have way more success with this fine liner bottle. Then I decide I'm just going to edge it a little bit more, and that just, again, builds up the overall. It's a little thing, but try it. You know, when you have two projects, do it on one and then don't do it on the other and see what you like. Now I should be almost done. And then I decide, you know, I'm going to do some highlighting inside. And often when I do the highlighting, actually if I'd stopped right there, that would have been just perfect. It makes it look like more 3D, like a glass, right? I find it interesting when I do videos because I get a different perspective when I watch them back and I see things a bit differently. Right now I'm obviously working and I'm really in my head. I'm second guessing myself, so I'm making lots of changes here. And I'm kind of giggling to myself because, you know, it was perfectly fine the way it was, then it was perfectly fine again. Now I decide, you know, I just want to get rid of some of that background. It's such a busy background. I want the glass to stand out a little bit more. So I mix up the two colors, the orange and the deep violet, and it makes this lovely burgundy. And I'm just painting the wine glass in. And, you know, this right now you can still see, you know, some of the pattern behind it, but it's less than the background. And you're right. Typically, if I was going to do this, I should have done this first and then done the white highlighting. But sometimes you don't know where you're going to go, so you end up duplicating or backtracking. And that's okay. So I'm happy with this as it is, and then I'm not. And I think it was the black dots, which I loved in the background, but I didn't want showing up. So then I take the tracer and I cut out of one of the coffee filters, cut it out, and I'm just going to glue it on top and do a collage piece. So feel free to skip all those steps in between where I tried to do the negative painting. It still worked. I still have the shading, which I'm benefiting from here. I could have also, if I still wanted to paint, if I didn't have any colored sheet, I could have painted out the glass with gesso, with white gesso, and then painted colors inside. But using the colored papers that I have, you know, there's some splatters and some other marks that I really liked, so that's the benefit of that. And I'm just adding a little bit more shading. This float technique is such a very usable technique in any project that you do. It is, I do show it more explicitly in a technique tag video, and if I remember, I'll put a link to that video. But it is something that you need to practice to get good at. So don't get frustrated if at first you aren't getting the effects that you like. Just keep practicing, it'll come. And I said, by no means am I doing it by the letter of the law here. I think this little mini canvas took about under 30 minutes. And I sped it up about 1.5 times. I didn't speed it up very much. So thank you for watching. Leave a comment in the description box below. Hit the subscribe button. Select the option to get notified as soon as I upload new videos. That way you won't miss any. And join my Facebook group, Mixed Media Creations. Bye for now.